on the Patreon was Oscar worthy.
Really. Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. It's 9:01 on a Thursday night. In fact, it's 9:01 on April 15th, 2021. And this is Crawlspace Live. I'm Tim, here tonight with Lance, as always, every week. What's up, Lance?
It's good to be here tonight. The church bells tolled 9 times. 9 melodic charms from the center of this peaceful, quiet hamlet community. Welcome, everyone. The True Crime Thursday.
I'm going to take a stroll around the room here with this one. If you're watching this on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, why don't you click that little link associated with that video and toggle your butts up on over to get vocal. Toggle it. We got a very special night here, Lance.
We do.
We are introducing a new podcast to our audience, some new faces to our Crawlspace Media family, and I'm so excited.
And I know that intro was silly, and I know we act silly when we do these Thursday night true crime nights, but it's a big release for us. This show that we have taken on, big shout out to Jason, who's here tonight, yes, and to Jen and to Aaron. These are 3 people that have helped us out with this show. Our good friend Maggie Freeling came to us and said she knows 2 amazing people, David Suave Gonzalez and Kevin McCracken. And these 2 gentlemen teamed up to produce a podcast that's based on the events following David's life after he's been released from incarceration. He was incarcerated when he was a juvenile. He was the subject of Futuro's podcast, Suave. And they contacted us and we were sold. It was an opportunity to channel the energy that you see here on Thursday night when we get silly to something that is really a vehicle for change and the show we should be doing right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, love every single show that we have in our Crawlspace family, but we're going to be taking on new shows. We're going to be producing new shows, and this is the show we need to be producing right now. Just in light of what is happening right now in the world, which, by the way, I just want to say before we bring them on, I just want to say big shout out to John Lorden. I know that kind of comes out of the blue. He recently lost his stepfather. He's in the middle of where it is so hot in this country, and I just all the respect in the world to him for just like stepping up and doing all the right things that he does. Just check out what he's doing. I don't want to take too much time talking about stuff that's going on in Minnesota, but just tip of the old cap to him.
Absolutely. Okay, and we're going to open up these spots. I see Suave and Kevin, I believe, both in the Get Vocal room. And while we wait the moment, I want to remind everyone to check out our Crawlspace episode from this week. We speak to a man named Eric Carter Landine, who has a really heartbreaking story. You got to listen to that episode. It's incredible. Kevin McCracken, welcome to the Get Vocal Crawlspace Live airway.
Thank you. And thanks for keeping it light. Am I too loud? Are we good? What's happening?
No, it's good. Very good.
With that equipment, how could you be anything but perfect?
Hey, come on now.
Long time no see.
Yeah, it's been since like maybe 10 minutes ago that we text.
It was about 10 minutes ago. Tim, I'm going to out Kevin a little bit here. Him and I talked on the phone because he had some business stuff to tell me. And before we hung up, he said, all right, I'll talk to you later, Tim. Oh, sorry. Chance. He was so excited because all we do is talk on Zoom. And he understood like your personality outside of a Zoom call, and he was so excited to sit in. And he was like, "I'm sorry, I was just thinking about Tim. I was thinking about like tonight with Tim."
Thank you. I'm excited.
So I've been stalking you guys on the Facebook side of this For the last,
Let's see. That's weird. That was repeating. Did you hear that repeating?
Yes.
Okay, it's still doing it. Kevin, could you maybe refresh your page? I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, I never saw that on Get Vocal.
I've never experienced that.
We'll have to cut that into a rap song.
I thought he was actually about to go into a rap. I'm into it. No worries. Okay. No, yeah.
But
I think we do have Suave in here too. There we
do. Yeah, Suave. Feel free to grab the spot. I don't know if you're on your computer or phone or whatnot, but I think it'll look different on whatever device you're on. And Kevin, to your point earlier, I am excited to get to know you guys a little bit more casually too. I think these Zoom calls that we have, I think that everyone has been having over the past year plus. Some of them get a little stuffy, and you're there. You're not always interacting. But so this is a great experience and a great opportunity for us to hang out.
For the last.
Oh, Lance is on mute. Oh,
didn't have this on my bingo card for tonight. That was amazing.
Yeah, definitely need a some kind of beat behind that. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's still doing it. How is it still doing it?
This is the strangest thing ever.
What? Jeez.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pop some links here.
Okay. Yeah, check out crawlspace-media.com /DBI. Stands for Death by Incarceration. Go subscribe to Death by Incarceration while we're taking a few minutes here. Yeah. Why don't you toggle your butts over to your Apple Podcasts app or your Spotify apps or your Stitches and subscribe.
All right.
We're losing it.
Yeah, I just put the nice Mimi. Thank you. Link is in there.
Hello, Whitney. Hello, everybody in the chat room. Thank you very much, Jason. Yes, you're absolutely right. So much interesting content on the way. Jason is on the production team, and he's doing a great job. Incredible episode coming. I guess it's sort of like a. I know we're not supposed to talk too much about it, but it's kind of like a bonus that's coming sometime in May. Lance, is that right? Can I say that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say exactly when because we're not sure, and I wouldn't say exactly what it is as far as like the content, but it is a bonus episode, and it is sort of it's not exactly what each episode of Death by Incarceration is, but it is what Death by Incarceration is about. It's about the mission, and this is insider info, and it's very, I don't know. We've all heard it. Jason's edited it. I'm going to say it's sort of a bombshell moment. I think bombshell is a good way to put it.
Tell it or anything.
No, I don't want to oversell it, but I mean, we're probably going to win a Peabody because of it. That's a Peabody, Massachusetts.
Yeah. It's they give it out at City Hall for great podcasting.
Yeah. Is Suave still here? Suave, you can hop on. You can grab that spot. If you're on your phone, you just have to like sort of swipe around.
Yeah, it's like a little swipe, I think. But make sure to subscribe. This is going to be a great show. There are a few trailers out there already. So you want to listen to those. And again, the bonus episode that's coming at some point soon is pretty intense. I can't wait for the public reaction on that, Lance. But I better zip my lip before I say something I shouldn't say. For Jen, as Crawlspace Legal calls us up.
While we wait for Kevin and Suave, I don't know. Maybe Jen, you want to pop on, talk about it a little bit, or
Jason even.
Yeah.
We need
Or
a
neither.
drink, for Christ's sake. We need a goddamn drink. Yeah. What's up, Jen? How you doing?
Hey, I've got a beer.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
Cheers.
Loose-lipped.
Tell us about this
Think
show,
so.
Death by Incarceration. Oh, and Kevin is back.
Is that working?
All right.
Awesome.
Yes.
I don't have to be here at all. I would really love for Suave to pop on. Suave, if you're having any trouble, just give me a call.
All right.
Okay.
Here. Hello and goodbye.
Okay.
In typical Jen fashion.
Mysterious as ever. As
All
the
right.
day is long. Kevin McCracken, welcome back to the Get Vocal airwaves.
I overloaded my poor little MacBook here. Too much stuff. I was trying to I was being tricky with my video cam setup, and it just, much better. So Suave is saying it's not letting him in. That's his take.
Maybe try if he can refresh if he's on a desktop on an app. Maybe I'm not sure really on the app. I guess maybe close it out and come back in.
I'm just going to tell him to call Jen.
Okay.
That's my answer, and I'm sticking with it.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah, I was just about to text Jen and tell him.
yeah, that's what I just told him. So yeah, I know you all were having to talk it up while we were gone. I just want to introduce myself a little bit more too, and just say how really grateful we are to be working with Crawlspace. And I have had nothing but good experiences so far. And really what Lance and I were talking about earlier today is when we were talking a little bit of business was the idea that, there may be other people interested in this once we get listeners. But the fact of the matter is we want to do this with somebody that doesn't just care about the number of listeners, but cares about the message. And as most of us know, the criminal justice system, as they call it in the U.S., is pretty broken. And I'm of the opinion that we need to take it all the way down to the studs and rebuild it. So, and this was proof positive again this week. And there's just a lot going on. And we're concentrating this first season on stuff in and around Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, and some national stuff around juvenile lifers. But the fact of the matter is we could go almost state by state and just pick apart certain areas of each system. And it's just it's a huge topic. And luckily for me, I have a co-creator and co-host that has a lot of personal experience. So, and I'm again just really happy to have the team that we have. Crawlspace and Suave and myself. And then Jason has been totally amazing. So we're super excited to get some of these episodes up. And they mentioned the mini episode that's coming, and I'll tease it just a little bit. We won't get into it tonight because I want people to listen. But here he comes. Here comes the man. I will say that we have been given some evidence in what might be a wrongful conviction case, and we're going to explore it. And it deals with a DA's office, that's a former DA's office in Philadelphia that has been, caught in a few different corruption kind of cases and had some convictions overturned. So, it's not surprising, and we won't name any names tonight, but, and wrongful convictions is not the focus of our show. However, there's going to be certain people that are currently incarcerated that trust individuals that have been involved in the system more than they do others. And so this kind of fell in our laps. So we're going to pursue it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, welcome to the Crawlspace Media airwaves. Suave Gonzalez, how are you tonight?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the people out there to tuning in. Yeah, like you were saying, this we're about to bring it. We're about to bring the heat to Philadelphia with this new podcast because I believe it's needed. As a person that experienced 31 years of incarceration, I believe that this podcast is way overdue. And we here, we serious about what we're doing. That's why we're dropping these bonus episodes before we drop our season. We have to. I always say if we have a platform, then we need to give the voice to the voiceless, and that's what we're about to do.
Welcome. You're saying how grateful you are for having this opportunity. We match that gratitude. We probably exceed that gratitude to have both of you in our orbit now. When Kevin was just talking a second ago, you emphasized something that I think Suave can elaborate on. You emphasized the so-called judicial system. Why is it in your head, and actually, Suave, how is this now broken? Why is this broken? Why did you spend at such a young age over 3 decades in jail?
Well, it's simply because I was caught up in a system that don't work. I was caught up in a system that hid a police statement that my co-defendant clearly pulled the trigger on this case, but they hit that statement from my attorneys when I went to trial. So there was no way for me to prove it. So I end up, being found guilty and spent 31 years in prison. And this is why I'm doing this show. I'm doing this show because I know the system is broken. And how crazy it is that 31 years later, I'm out reproducing this show, and the same prosecutor's name keep coming up in these bombshell episodes that we're about to drop real soon. The same prosecutor that prosecute me is involved. So I always say, if you got the same prosecutor's name coming up and all these wrongful convictions is being overturned, then something is wrong with the system. And if we don't fix it or bring it light to it, then we just as good as the people that's doing this corruption. And I always say this, right? And I say this to Larry Krasner in Philadelphia. If you don't act on this evidence and this episode that we dropping, then you cannot parade yourself as a reformer. We putting you to a test now. And it just happened to be a former juvenile lifer and my partner Kevin that's doing it. And there's a lot of risks for me in there. And I say it publicly, there's a lot of risks for me because I am a juvenile lifer. I am on parole for life. We dealing with, DA races, and when you start interrupting that kind of stuff, there's a lot of repercussions. But who cares? The truth must be told, and we telling the truth on Crawlspace and Death by Incarceration. That's what we're here for.
Beautiful. Do you think that the term system is an overused term that just has been lost in the sort of the lexicon because it's used so much? Like, cancel culture doesn't mean anything anymore because everyone says cancel culture. Do you think that the system isn't broken? It's just not built for a certain type of society?
You hit it right. I think that there's nothing wrong with the system. It's the people that's running the system.
Yeah.
And able to reform a system, you got to tear it down and build it back up. And how do you do that with the prison system? You got to tear it down. This is why we need progressive prosecutors across the country. As it stands today, 10% of the prosecutors across the country are progressive prosecutors. We need more. We need more. We need more Larry Krasners. We need more Chester Bodines. We need more progressive prosecutors that's going to play fair. Because we're not saying open the door and let everybody out. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying play fair. Play fair. Understand the mitigating factors that goes into when somebody commit an act that's not, conducive for society.
Why aren't they playing fair now?
Well, I don't know. Because the system don't like to corrupt themselves.
Yeah.
They don't like to corrupt themselves. They like to stand on, we got a conviction, we got to maintain it. It's hard for a regular person to say I'm wrong, let alone a DA's office or a system, in total to say, we fucked up. We wrong. They're not. They're never going to do that. But it takes people like ourselves to, call them out.
Yeah, I think one of the things that got pointed out in one of our early interviews is that the system is really set up to viciously target certain people. And so, Michelle has been asking in the chat, what kind of conversations do we want to have with elected officials? I mean, I think the first one is let's talk about what parole and probation looks like for people that have nothing when they come out of prison. That's a really simple conversation to have, because it's completely unjust. I mean, when you're looking at, and Suave is a perfect example of this and why I find his story so compelling. He got out of a life sentence when the Supreme Court ruled that mandatory life sentences for juveniles was unconstitutional. Yet when he got out, he was given a lifetime parole sentence. That means if there's a direction he walks on his block, he's out of his zip code. He really should be checking with his parole agent to see if that's okay. And the rules change all the time, and your parole agent or anyone in their office can change the rules on you at any time. One of the things he mentioned in one of our conversations was if they decide you're making too much money, they can tell you that's not an appropriate job for a parolee. You got to quit.
And they've done it. They do it every day.
So I think the simple conversations to have are the ones around how we treat returning citizens. And let's stop using language like ex-convict, because if you've served your time, you have by all rights gotten the right to get your civil rights restored. And, I can say as someone that went through the process of getting my civil rights restored, 20 years ago, it shouldn't be that difficult, really, honestly. You did the crime, you served the time, you're out. Why are we putting certain people on lifetime parole? And really, does that sort of supervision even work? Statistics say no, it doesn't. It doesn't change anything. And so it really just puts pressure on people that are already struggling when they get out to integrate into society. And so, it's incredibly important that we really change the language and the thought process around what people are capable of. And if you put someone away like Suave at 17 years old, and so you're dealing with an adolescent brain, you're dealing with somebody that maybe made some poor life choices based on generational trauma, generational, in his case, trauma. Let me say that one more time, generational trauma. And I hear people all the time saying things like, oh, well, we have the Civil Rights Act. We have the Voting Rights Act. We have these things that have given rights to people. And it's like, but we have generations before that where they didn't have any rights. And we are continuing a system that's targeting those same communities. So how are we ever going to get out of this loop unless we do what Suave just mentioned and tear this thing down and rebuild it?
And expose the institutional racism that's still going on in these institutions. Bottom line. I know one guy in Pennsylvania that got out and wasn't put on parole. And he come from a suburban white county. His family got a lot of money and he managed to get out with time served. So you can't tell me that institutional racism don't play a part in these decisions. When 430 of the juvenile lifers in Pennsylvania coming out of the Philadelphia County, and the majority of them are black and brown. So you tell me, the other percentage that come from the suburban county don't have to be on lifetime parole. So how is it even possible that the United States Supreme Court said it's illegal, it's unconstitutional to keep a juvenile in prison for life, but you can keep them on parole for life? Parole is an extension of incarceration. So that's why we're doing these shows, because I don't think that people across the country understand different rules for different cities and states. In Michigan, juvenile lifers, when they come home, they're only on parole for 5 years. Maximum. But the problem that they have is that we have a racist system in Michigan that resentences every juvenile lifer back to life. So they're not getting out, even though if they do get out, they'll only be on parole for 5 years, but a lot of them are not getting out.
This whole conversation's got me extremely fired up, and I have to take a step back sometimes, because everything you say you were saying, Kevin, generations, and it's generations for Suave. It's hundreds of years. It's hundreds and hundreds of years, just in general. Before we get deeper into that, which we really should, I want people to know how dangerous you are, Suave, with how smart you are. When you first talked to us, you told us what your IQ was going in, and you told us what you accomplished and what you're like now. You have some of your artwork behind you. Your accomplishments are amazing, and that makes you extremely dangerous to the people you're talking about.
Well, listen, I became dangerous when they put me in prison and they put me in solitary confinement for 7 years. When I mean dangerous, I don't mean physically, I mean mentally, right? When they gave me the opportunity to educate myself and learn how to read and write, when they gave me the opportunity to go to college and obtain a degree, I knew that it was over for them now. I went to prison with an IQ of 56. I graduated from the University of Villanova with a 3.5. I wrote 5 books in prison and got them published. We created a restorative justice program in prison for a city organization that generated millions of dollars. We created 52 murals for the city of Philadelphia. People walk around these murals in Philadelphia because Philadelphia is supposed to be the mural city. And 52 of the murals was created by Sincerely Yours and 17 other lifers. But I don't go around bragging about that because it's not even about me. I'm home. I'm free to a certain extent. It's about the brothers and sisters that I left behind. I represent them. I am their voice. The same way my friend, my mentor, Maria and Ahosa gave me a voice when I was in. That's the same way we giving a voice with death by incarceration to the hundreds and thousands of people behind these prison walls. It falls on us to speak for them. They can't speak for themselves. So when people tell me, oh, well, you smart. Well, guess what? I consider myself smart, but I had help. I had a lot of help. I had people like James Huff who told me, find your style in art. He's there right now, James. He told me, find your niche in art and stick with it. Don't be like me. And that's what I did. I had a lot of people that helped me. The person that helped me out of Reed was another lifer. These are the people that play a part in my life. So these are the people that I'm representing today. I'm not dangerous because I'm a big guy and I'm tough. I'm none of that. I really can't fight. I act like I could. Really can't fight. But when it comes to the mental game, we could do that. Because to be tough, you don't have to be physically tough. But if you're mentally tough and you know what you're talking about, then you're dangerous, especially in a system. And a system that look at us as throwaways. So what we did with the arts in the prison system, we used the arts to fight the system and the racism that sits behind these prison walls. And that's what we did. So I come home, I came home with talent. I came home with a skill that no matter who hired me, because I have a felon in my record, I could always survive with my art. I could always eat with my art. I could always pay my rent with my art and my writing. That's something that they can't take away. People can say, well, you was in jail, you were a felon. All that may be true. But I'm also a smart guy. I'm also the same guy that helped paint 52 murals for the city of Philadelphia. I'm also the guy that wrote 5 books. I'm also a guy that led an organization with about 500 members. I'm also a guy that created a scholarship that donated 152 scholarships to minority students from in prison. And it was sponsored by guys that only make 18 cents an hour. So, if that make me dangerous, then I'll take the title.
It does.
I appreciate that. How it's inspiring. I love it. I love hearing you talk, and it's sort of evokes a passion in me as well. Tell us about these books that you wrote. Do you mind?
Yeah. When I was in prison, I used to mentor a lot of young kids. When I say kids, younger guys than me, and they used to always tell me their stories and stuff. So one day I just said, you know what? I'm gonna write me a book. And I was inspired to write a book because Maria and Ahosa sent me her book. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna write a book about prison and let the people know what really go on in here. So I just started adding people's stories and making stories. And a lot of people call them urban fiction, but to me, that was reality books because most of the books that I wrote were based on people that I met in prison. That was based on that. And and I take pride in that because, to not only to write a book, but to publish 5 books from in prison, 5 good, successful books that people was reading. And, to me, it was something that it was a dream come true. It was a dream come true. And, be ready for my novel. I got another novel. It's called A Journey Through Mass Incarceration. And it will be coming soon on Crawlspace and Death by Incarceration. Y'all will get it first.
Yeah, I want to point something out that came up in the chat from James as well. And Suave touched on it with the restorative justice comment. One of the things that is so phenomenal to me about Suave, and there's many things. I mean, we talk like 10 times a day. So, I feel constantly inspired by his work. And is that he's an advocate for victims as well as
absolutely,
and as well as the individuals that are currently incarcerated, the human beings, which we'll just keep calling them humans because the system is set up to dehumanize and demoralize. He's an advocate for people taking responsibility for their actions and not only taking responsibility for it, but talking about it and trying to amend that action with the community that they're from. So, and James threw it up there in the chat. Suave, when we talk about restorative justice, we're talking about individuals that are willing to take responsibility for what they've done and speak to their victims or victims' families about it if they're willing. And that a lot of people, I'm finding more and more a lot of people are willing to do that are individuals that are currently incarcerated. And I've done restorative justice circles in San Quentin. And I will say, honestly, being 22 plus years clean and sober and in a lot of 12-step groups and other groups, I don't even see that level of responsibility from people that are supposedly recovered many times. And I left the last time I was in a restorative justice group in San Quentin feeling like I was the one that got the help that day. I wasn't there to help anybody because these guys were so honest and so forthright about what they had done and how bad they felt about it and how much they really wanted to make some kind of amends for it. And some of them had absolutely no chance at parole. Some of them were up for parole. None of them seemed disingenuous to me because you have to go through a process to even get to do the circles with visitors and volunteers. And so one of the things that I really want to commend Suave on, and we talk about this all the time, is that there is always a victim. We also have to keep in mind that victims' rights groups, a lot of them are not run by people who are in the cycle where they're not only a victim, but they may have a relative or friend that was an actor in a crime that's currently serving time. That prosecutors use victims in ways to get harder sentences through guilt and, and kind of the harshness of the crime. And when you really, and you'll hear it in our podcast. So I'm going to tip our hat a little bit or our hand a little bit and say, we talk to victims who also have, family members that are serving time and that have come full circle with it. And one of the people even said that she feels like her witness testimony was too harsh after thinking about it, and kind of going through her own process of healing. And, she's been accused of things like Stockholm syndrome because she has compassion. We have set up a system and people, kind of keep bringing this up in the chat. What can we do? First and foremost, stop using words like ex-con, stop using words like inmate, start using words like human being who is incarcerated, returning citizen, because people should and could and will take the opportunity to change, I can speak to that from my own experience. I can speak to that from the experience of working with, people for 20 years trying to do reform. And I say I'm a reformist, but the fact of the matter is I'm an abolitionist. I really do believe that this system needs to be completely upended if we're going to change anything.
And also, let's keep in mind that 90% of the people incarcerated at some point in their life were victimized themselves.
Yep.
So do they stop being victims because they're offended? No, they're still victims. They still deserve the same compassion that we offer other victims. And to me, when I say I represent victims, I really mean that, because I know both sides of the coin. I was a victim myself. Before I even offended. I seen my grandfather get killed. I heard in my podcast and the Suave podcast, I see my grandfather get killed right in front of me while giving me a haircut. I felt his blood all in my neck and, the heat of the blood. And that was the day that I think I lost my humanity, because hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. And I can honestly tell you, when I witnessed that, I became numb. I lost whatever sense of humanity I had. I lost it. And I was like, so I'm hurting, the whole world gonna hurt. But I never even spoke about that when I went to prison. You know why? Because I always thought that I'm an offender now. I'm no longer a victim. I'm an offender. And that's trauma that I never dealt with till I recently came out. I never dealt with that trauma in my incarceration. My family never spoke about it, because in certain cultures, be a man, man up. And, you don't talk about that kind of stuff. It's the past, and it took me years. It took me years to even bring myself to forgive the person that murdered my grandfather. Years. And I can tell you, this is true crime. I ran into that person when I was in Leavenworth prison. And yeah, it was either him or me. It was either me and him, however we did it. He got a knife and I got a knife and we went at it. We went at it because that's how you deal with that kind of stuff in prison. Thank God that person didn't die or anything, because I probably would have died in prison. But in 1990, I ran into him when I was up Leavenworth Penitentiary, and I told him, like, one of us can't leave here today. You kill somebody I love, and and that's how we dealt with it. But I thank God that it was resolved in a way where we both still alive. I don't know if he is, but at that time we both was. But again, 90% of the people in prison were victimized themselves, and we should afford them the same compassion we afford victims out here.
Suave, I don't want to interrupt you when you're talking, because I feel like I'd be interrupting a poet mid-poem. I really do. But I do want to ask about that situation. What happened? Can you tell us any more details about what happened?
I was sent to the federal system from the state prisons because there was a riot in 1989 in Camp Hill Institution in PA. So they sent us to the federal system. I ended up going to Lewisburg, Texarkana, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, and the last penitentiary they shipped me out was to Leavenworth Penitentiary. So I get there, and to this day, I still remember that man's face. I can never forget that man's face. He killed my grandfather, and I seen them. And even though I was 12 years old when that happened, I seen them. And I'm like, oh my God, it can't get no better than this. At that time, I was young, and the penitentiary was rough. You had to put in some work, what they call work. If you was a softie, somebody was gonna make you their girl and their wife. It's simple as that, right? So I seen him, and I said, "You remember me?" And he was like, "No." I said, "But I remember you." I said, "You killed my grandfather," and we was in the gym. He had a knife, I had a knife. And the best man, let the best man win. He tried to stab me up. He tried to stab me. He tried to stab me in my arm, and I stabbed him. It was just as simple as that. When he went down, everybody ran out the gym. I ran out. At that time, you couldn't be a snitch in the penitentiary because then you couldn't live in no penitentiary. So even though the administration knew that I was involved with it, nobody would point their fingers. All they did was ship me back to the state system, because for once I was never supposed to be in the federal system. I'm a state prisoner. So even though nobody told on me, even if somebody would have told, they couldn't charge me up because I wasn't supposed to be in the federal system. But that's just one incident that I thank God that the individual didn't suffer. It wasn't fatal, because I still would have been in jail today. So I thank God that, for that. But the lesson in that is that when you are young and ignorant, like I was, this is how you resolve problems. In the real world, this is not how we deal with issues. But in the penitentiary, they speak its own language, has its own code. This is how you deal with it. If I would not act on that, I couldn't live in that penitentiary, because it was almost like an insult. You let that man that killed your grandfather walk around here like nothing happened. That's penitentiary for you. 101 in the 80s. That's what the penitentiary looked like. Today, the penitentiary it's not built like it was in the 80s. You could go in the penitentiary for the most horrific crime today and get the protection that you want. Back in the 80s, they threw you with the wolves, especially if you was a juvenile. And the way you survived, the way you kept your manhood, was to act worse than the people that was there already.
Yeah. And that, James is saying, sadly, violence in prison is so normalized, especially for younger males incarcerated. It's a little better now, but before it was truly brutal. That is really indicative of something that I don't know if you realize you said it. You said the real world. You said this isn't, it's not the real world, but that's the opposite of what it is. Like, that is the real world. I think like we're rapidly discovering that now, that the real world isn't wonderful and perfect and white. The real world is violent and brutal, and it has a lot of mistakes, and we have to be honest with ourselves and say, hey, we fucked up and we got to fix some stuff, or else it's going to just be violence over violence over violence again and again and again. And your story, while it's super tragic and heart-wrenching, but also triumphant, because both of you walked away from that moment, it's probably more common than we know, right?
Yes. But in the 80s, it was more brutal, because at the time when I went to jail, it was like there was, we was thrown in an adult prison as kids to deal with the environment as adults when we were still kids, and you had to grow fast. Like, and I'm talking about within days, you had to become that guy. You had to become that man. You had that transformation from boys to man in the penitentiary for me happened within hours. The day I stepped foot in Gratisville prison, when I saw that 45 foot wall, and I went into the receiving room, and the guy said, bend over. I was like, huh? Bend over. He was like, strip naked, bend over. Open your ass cheeks, show me what you got in there, lift your nutsack up. That humiliating process, took whatever little bit of humanity I had. And I said, you know what? If I keep this little bit of humanity, I'm not going to survive in prison. I'm not going to survive. So I left it out in the bus. I said, you know what? I'm not going to need it. I got a life sentence. So I had to step out of character and act out of character to survive. And that's the sad reality when you put children in adult prisons.
How soon into that did you make that decision?
I made that decision that I was sentenced in April 6th to prison. April 9th, I was shipped to state prison. And that was the day that I said, you know what? I'm not gonna let nobody here fuck with me. I'm not gonna let nobody here turn me out and into their girlfriend or nothing. That's not gonna happen, right? And if I got a life sentence, I'm gonna do this time the way I want to do this time. And
when you were 17,
and I was 17, and that's what I did. And it's sad. It's sad because that's not really how I was raised. That's not really how my mother raised me. My mother raised me to have compassion for other people and respect other people and love other people. But when you hit the penitentiary, that shit don't work. It don't work. You know, Pete, you got to let people know, like, if you fuck with me, you got something else coming. If you steal my commissary, you got something else coming. If you think you can extort me or abuse me, you got something else coming. Because one thing that people respect in the penitentiary is violence. When they know you are willing to die for what you stand for, they're not going to mess with you.
the same with the people who are in charge in the prison, the guards and the authority figures, that they respect violence too?
Oh yeah, they do. You know, don't get it twisted. Guards understand that if you are a person that will fight, they won't test you. They won't try you. You know, they will do little things when they go in your cell, when they shake your cell down and probably throw your extra cup of weight or take your extra mattress because they can. But they be very careful on how to approach you. You know, but they always say he's incorrigible, he's crazy, you know, don't mess with him, you know. And in most of the cases, it's not. Most of the cases is that's the attitude you got to adopt and able to survive. You got that's the persona you got to adapt, because for the most part, you know, I was the leader of an organization, one of the biggest organizations in the prison system. You know, I was a guy that helped anybody. You know, I have a special place in my heart for people with mental health problems. You know, I always helped them people, but I also had a position that I took, like, don't mess with me and I won't mess with you. And you know, and after a while, when you're a lifer, people get to know you, so you get to settle into your routine. But when you first enter the prison system as a child, it takes at least 10 years for you to really adapt and find your way in the prison.
And we I want to bring it to something that stands out as one of the first moments that we had that really stands out to me when we were on one of our Zoom calls. You've come out of this with a personality and a mission and a sense of humor as well. You really have. And we were on this Zoom call, and we were all talking about equipment and the best equipment for recording purposes and what to use, like if we had to record on the fly. And you said, well, right now I go in my bathroom and it's good in there. I can get, good audio in there. And I think Jen had said, well, we can try to hook you up with like a better location maybe. And you made a comment about you've done all your best work in a bathroom for 30 years. So you feel comfortable in there. And there was this moment where all of us were on the Zoom call, and if you had taken a screenshot, it looked like all of us froze except you. Because we're like, okay. And then you laughed and we all laughed and we were like, okay, that's good.
But that's the truth, man. You know, I spend my whole adult, hood in a shoebox. In a shoebox, small space. And I created my best work there. I created my novels there. I created some of my best paintings there. I wrote some of my best letters in there. Like most of my best moments in life while I was in prison was in the shoebox. So you have to be resourceful. If I don't have a real good sound, I just take my computer, go in the bathroom, put the mic to the shower pole and just let's get busy. For some people out here, it's like, why would I go in the bathroom? Because you got a real good quiet sound that you can't get nowhere else. And that's what I need to record, so now I don't, and I tell people the reason I still live in a studio apartment it's not because I can't afford it. It's because I'm not used to living in large places and big places. And I'm scared to live in a big house because I might get lost in the basement and, I might not find something I'm looking for. So I'm comfortable in a small place. Eventually, I'm going to want something bigger, but for now, I'm comfortable in a small place. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. Some of my best work was created in the bathroom. Mm-hmm. My transformation from an ignorant young person that had nothing but violence in his mind took place in a bathroom, in a prison cell, because the prison cell is smaller than some bathrooms. My bathroom today is bigger than the prison cell I spend my time in. Wow. So, to me, it works. You got to be resourceful, people.
When you say shoebox, is that, do you mean your jail cell or is that solitary confinement?
They're both the same. Both cells are the same. But it's, a prison cell. I spent most of my life in a prison cell. 31 years, that's a lot of time to be in a cell with a toilet and a sink, and you could touch the walls with your hands, right? That's a lot of time. You get comfortable to being in small places. I'm claustrophobic. I can't be in a car and sit in the middle. No way. I got to sit by the door. For some reason, when I ride a plane, I got to be by the aisle. I can't be close. But that's part of being in prison. That's part of being in prison. But yeah, I've done some of my work in the bathroom.
And if people don't think that this is an epidemic, you went on the street one day, and this is one of the public feeds that we have out right now. People can go and they can watch this on YouTube, and you can listen to it on Apple as well. If you watch it on YouTube, you can actually more make out because Jason edited it, and there are the subtitles, and you can see people. We were just talking on the phone, and you were walking back from your job, and you had your phone, and just out of the blue, you said, hold on, let me show you this. Let me show you how bad it is here. And you randomly walked over to three people that were sitting on a park bench in front of City Hall in Philadelphia. And you said, what does death by incarceration mean to you? Completely random people, completely random moment. And we realized this might turn into something. So we hit record on the Zoom, which is what you can watch on YouTube or listen to on Apple. And once they understood what you were talking about, it took 3 seconds. You just repeated your question. What does death by incarceration mean to you? The gentleman at the table said it's a slow drip, drip, drip of time.
And he served 36 years on death row.
Yeah.
And then the other lady had a son that was serving life. But
then the other lady said it's a broken system that needs to be fixed.
Right. But if you speak to 5 people in Philly, 3 of them probably have somebody in prison, know somebody in prison, or been in prison themselves. Yeah. That's the reality that we're living in. America has made prison their apple pie.
Yeah.
And they believe that we're going to solve every problem in the society with imprisonment. And that's not the case. So to the people that are paying taxes, like me today, pay a lot of taxes, and I don't even make that much. I don't want my money to keep going for prisons and locking people up. Let's find an alternative. Some of these brothers that have been in prison 30, 40 years don't deserve to be in prison. I can honestly tell you that. Yes, you have some people that deserve to be somewhere, right? For the most part, if a person been in prison 40, 50 years, is that person no longer a danger to nobody? We talking about old people. When I don't even like telling people I'm a juvenile lifer because I'm 52 years old. I'm a grown man. But that's the term that they gave us, right? For the most part, you're not releasing 15, 16, 17-year-old kids back into the community. You're releasing middle-aged men, and a lot of them got health problems. And the last thing on their mind is committing another crime. Yeah. They don't think about that. People don't sit around in prison cell and say, well, when I get out, I'm going to commit this crime. Most people sit in prison cells. You know what they don't. You know what they think about? How can we stop some of the nonsense violence in our community? What can we do to give back? And this is how we create scholarships. This is how we create food drives from in the prison. This is how we create a clothing drive for vets from the prison. You know, you don't get that on your local news because it don't benefit the local news to say, well, we got a bunch of prisoners giving out scholarships to people often called, you know, with children of incarcerated parents. They always want to give you the graphics like such and such skills, such and such. That's not us. That's not the dudes in the prison. That's not the dudes in the prison. And the irony of this is that the same DA in Philadelphia, Steph Williams, I'm going to call him by name, they fought tooth and nail to keep juveniles and lifers. They prosecuted the blacks legislative body because he said it was corrupt. End up in prison himself for being corrupt. They sent his ass to prison. And today he runs a reentry program. And I asked the question, how is it that a corrupt politician that violated the trust of the people in the city could come home and be put in another position of trust? When returning citizens come home, they can't even find a job because they wreck it. But you're going to give a job to an ex-politician that stole from his mama? Come on, man. Tell me this system is not broken. If I'm wrong, correct me. Come on, Lance, correct me. If I'm wrong, correct me. Talk to me.
I would never. No,
Well, can I ask a question? Because I agree. There's problems here in the system, but what does it look like? You say we need to blow it up and start from scratch. What does that look like to you?
Whoa! I don't want the FBI coming after me. I ain't saying blow it up.
Sorry, I meant
coming after me now. I'm saying
very of words.
We have to turn it down, and we have to be careful how we select our leaderships for these positions. Because sometimes we just say we vote and put people in position with our emotions, and then we end up getting what we got. We need to understand that we, the people, have a say-so in how these prisons are run. The community should want to be involved in the type of treatment that some of these brothers and sisters receive while they are incarcerated, because most of them are coming back into your community. Most of them are going to be your neighbors. So why not contribute to their transformation while they're in prison to ensure that when they come home, they at least have a head start and reacclimating themselves into the community. These prison walls are not just there to keep bad people in prison. They're also there to keep the community from knowing what's taking place.
Yeah.
So it is your right as a citizen to know what's going on in the prison system. It is your right. You have that right.
I also, we interviewed DA Krasner the other day. And so one of the further things that he said is not just prosecutors who are up for election in every city, in the
judges and legislators,
legislators, mayors. Find out who your mayor is. See if they're working with the police union, many of which supported Trump, just to be honest, and see what they're doing. See what their policies actually are, because prosecutors can only do so much. They can only do so much. They have a limit. They can retry cases. They can, there's a lot they can do, but if they don't have the backing of the, law enforcement, the mayor's office, the board of supervisors, whoever it is that's in power, all the way up to, your state legislators and your representatives. And people were asking earlier in the chat, what can you do? I call my state senator's office all the time. I know my district legislative aide. I know her. We talk, we email. I ask her all the time, what are you doing to change parole and probation? We just had laws passed in California, because state legislators are working on these issues. What are you doing in San Quentin to reduce COVID when it started? And it was, you know, to be blunt, it was almost like a slaughter in there. People were losing their lives that did not have death sentences or life sentences in San Quentin because of how they handled the COVID crisis. So you can call the easiest people to get a hold of local supervisors, local council members, your district attorney, move it on up to your state reps, to your state senators. You can talk to any of them. I guarantee it. They're reachable. You will get somebody on the phone. Calling your senator, you know, in Washington it's almost useless, to be honest, because the states make the laws around sentencing. They make the laws around parole and probation, and it's really easy calls to make. I want to roll back to something that Suave said about the murder of his grandfather. And this is a question for everybody out there and for all of us to ponder. What do we do with young men like Suave when the people who could mentor them that own businesses like barbershops are taken from them? You know, I hear a lot of talk from, you know, these hardcore, you know, crime and punishment kind of, you know, legislators and judges and DAs about how, you know, Black and brown communities are missing moral, you know, they're missing their moral fiber. Where are the dads? Well, they're getting fucking murdered in front of their children and grandchildren. That's where they are. So what are we going to do to mentor these young men when their earliest experiences in life are violence and murder and trauma? What are we going to do as a society to fix that? How are we going to step into that? There's only so many Big Brothers and Big Sisters programs out there. You know what I mean? And those don't necessarily put up numbers. I don't know what the stats are on that, but we have to really dig deep and figure out what we can do to help these communities. 1 in 50 Black children have a parent that is incarcerated right now in the United States. Let that settle in for a minute.
You know, and I just want to backtrack a little bit, right? Because I want people to understand how crazy and broken this system is. If I'm walking down the street with Lance and I commit a crime and you not aware that I'm about to commit a crime, in most states, you get a conspiracy charge. You should have known he was about to commit a crime. But when one of these police officers put their foot on a Black man's neck, right, for 9 minutes, you know, well, the other officers didn't do nothing, so he didn't kill this guy. Or everyone that was there when George Floyd was murdered should be slapped with a murder charge. The same way you do Black and brown people when something happened. You charge everybody up. Why is it that the police don't get charged up like that?
We could go to the stats on that, how there's over 1,000 of those situations that happen where I think maybe 4 police officers have actually been charged. What was I mean, right? That's real loose numbers because I wasn't ready for you to bring this up, but it is thousands compared to a fraction of who's charged. And even the charges are arbitrary. You know, the charges are they're not real sentences. It's
right. In Pennsylvania, we have this thing called second-degree murder, right? Mm-hmm. We have a large number of individuals that never kill anyone, serving life, while the perpetrator that committed the crime is out. Tell me, where is the justice in that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's disgusting. What we saw in the George Floyd case with the trial, what's happening right now with Derek Chauvin, is no different from taking a Black man out and hanging him in the street while everyone watched him die for 9 minutes. It's no different. There shouldn't be a trial happening right now. There shouldn't be an argument about murder right now. We've all seen a video of someone being murdered. There's no question about it. There's no difference than what happened in the 1700s, the 1800s, the early 1900s, before there were cell phones, and we were able to shoot things and instantly upload them to social media. It's just a different version.
Well, one of the questions I've posed to a few guests is there's kind of two parts to it, but can you imagine what the law enforcement action would look like right now if they've arrested a lot of people, but if a bunch of black and brown men marched into the Capitol and a cop died, every single one of them would have been charged with second-degree murder.
Kevin, they wouldn't have even stepped foot any further than
the parking lot.
Than the parking lot before the National Guard came down with everything they had. They wouldn't have had the opportunity to walk into the Capitol and take selfies with the police officers and the guards.
We can't walk in there when it was permitted without getting questioned. I've been up there. I've been in DC. I try to go in there. Where you going, young man? Oh, you got to let me see your ID. And I'm okay. I'm here, man. I don't want no trouble, right? So no, let's call it for what it is. We living in a racist society. They treat black and brown people different, and that's just how it is.
It's how it's been forever.
It's been like that, and that's how it's gonna be, and that's why we need everyone just have a platform to lend a voice to shake the system up. Because one thing we know, that most of these institutions don't like to be criticized, especially when you're blunt about it. Well, let me talk to you. We don't do that. We have some things that we change. We training our employees to be this. We training our employees to be that. That's some bullshit. Some textbook shit. The only way that we get people to change the way they're running this institution is to expose them and to call it for what it is. And most of the times, a lot of the times, it's people that look like me that's doing the dirty work. It's people that look like me. So it's not always the other kind. Let's not get it twisted that we telling out the white man. It's not always the white man doing that shit. It's not always them. It's always people that look like us. Most re-entry organizations in the city of Philadelphia are run by white people, but they have a brown or black face as they presenter. And they the one that do the dirty work. They the one that tell you, no, I don't like you. I don't like the way you looked at me. I know because I experienced it. I work for a couple of nonprofits organizations. I know what go on behind the scene. I know how they treat people like me. I know that because I seen it. I witnessed it. And this is why I don't work for nonprofits no more. So what I'm telling the people, let's stop hiding behind these racist institutions and start calling them out, because today is me. But tomorrow could be your son, your grandkid, your husband. And I'm pretty sure that when it happens to your husband, you and your son and your grandson, you're going to want some justice. Oh, my son was a good guy. He was a good kid. All mothers say that. But when a black mother and a brown mother say, it's like, well, your son committed a crime and he did this and he should get prosecuted to the full extent. Ain't that the same story we hear when corrupt politicians go to jail? I had a transformation. I really seen what my work was doing, and I got to see with the people. Oh, now you got to see what prison is like because they send your ass to prison. I remember in the 90s, the Pennsylvania Attorney General, Annie Priet, ended up going to prison. And this is a guy that if you look at everybody's cases from the 80s that was appealing, his name was on them. He was just denying people for commutation. But when he went to prison, he wanted some forgiveness. And then he came back as, I'm going to save all y'all black and brown people. he went into the prison. He was going from prison to prison in Pennsylvania, asking prisoners that only make pennies to send him money so he could be our lobbyist and our advocate. Ain't that a great hustle? The former attorney general going back into the prison saying, I could get you out of jail. I could get them I could get them, meaning the legislators, to listen to me because I am one of them. But send me your money. Send me the $10 you make a month in the prison so I could have enough money to travel up there and advocate. But I'm gonna leave it like my friend James said. I still have much faith in the American system and the spirit that they have, because only in America could Suave Gonzalez go to prison with a life sentence 10 to 20, 1.5 to 2, and end up on Crawlspace talking about death by incarceration. That could only happen in America, people. So it's only in America. So I have to have a little faith in the system that I want to destroy so bad.
Yeah.
So
well said. Well said. Wow.
Real quick. Suave, explain the artwork behind you.
Well, the piece that let me turn the light on for you.
That's a big piece right there.
Hold up. Y'all hear me now?
Oh yeah.
Now you're muted.
You're muted.
You're muted, Suave. You clicked the mute.
Should be the little button on the bottom left of your screen, or on the bottom left of your little box.
Maybe his
headphones got plugged out or unplugged or something. Yeah,
that's what plugs into the back of his mic. No.
Okay. Well, I want to take a minute here. I was going to ask Suave about the podcast called Suave that I think is wonderful, and everyone out there should check that out as well. And it's from PRX and Futuro, our friend Maggie Freeling and Maria Hinosa. Oh God, my pronunciation.
No.
Yeah, but wonderful woman and wonderful show, incredible show. Just want to give that shout out real quick while we have a minute. Look at that art back there.
Yeah,
that's all Suave's art.
That's all Suave's art.
And I know that these topics are really heavy, but they are topics that we need to talk about. And I just want to say real quick about death by incarceration. It's about the alternative. It's about life beyond the death by incarceration. It is about being inspired by these stories and being willing to challenge a system and seeing that a challenge can actually make some difference. It's only heavy in the sense of where these people have come from, where Suave has come from, and where the people who make the policies have come from. When you're looking at those people, where are they coming from and why are they doing what they're doing? It's a challenging show. And ultimately it's an inspirational show. And I'm sorry, Suave, we can't hear you.
Yeah, something happened. I think you hit mute or switched you can hear us?
You can hear us still? Looks like, yeah. On the bottom left of your screen, there's a little mic button. I don't know if you can hit that, then it'll our little mic icon.
Call Jen.
The other thing is I want to mention one of the things that we want to do with this show is community action, direct community action. And Suave handed out a bunch of food last week, and I know there's some video of that, but we don't want to do it just for for media purposes or for self-promotion. We want to engage the community. And so one of the things we're talking about when things clear up a little bit is me coming to Philadelphia, him doing an art opening at the gallery that represents him, and then the next day doing a community forum and event where we hand out food. One of our sponsors is Bella Canvas, the t-shirt company, gets shirts from them to give to the community. And then also set up and record a show live and let people talk about their experiences with the system, and that will be open to anyone in Philadelphia. And as we kind of move out of season 1 and into season 2, we'll let people know about plans for that. If it works out well, we'll also do it in San Francisco. We have a space here on the West Coast to do it. We'll do it close to these guys up in the Boston area. And the idea being that we can engage community members in a one-on-one way, as well as sort of bring people together. And Michelle's asking what's any other cities that will have us, quite honestly. But we want to connect with a good nonprofit that's doing the work, direct action within their communities. And it's really important that people understand that we're not just here to talk about the issues at hand, because we could talk about it, till the end of time. And the fact of the matter is we want to help our communities make some systemic changes. And the only way really to do that is to bring people together. There's so many people that are hurt by mass incarceration in this country. And there's very few people in larger cities that aren't touched by this issue. We started off talking about juvenile lifers. And I think one of the things that we need to also point out, Maryland, as of Maryland, as of this week, is no longer allowing life sentences for juvenile offenders, which is amazing. But there's still 22 states in the United States that give that sentence, and they get around the Supreme Court ruling by eliminating the word mandatory. And so when we talk about calling your representatives, this is one of the things that you can affect. You can go to the sentencingproject.org and find out what states still give out life sentences to our youth. And I want to say this very clearly: our youth, our children, are going to prison for life. We are the only country in the world that does this, and it is condemned by international law. So it's definitely something that we want to talk about. Suave, we can hear you now.
Okay, this is one of my pieces that I'm working on. It's a very large piece. If you can see, I got I Can't Breathe, portrait of George Floyd. It's a whole lot of things going on. It's a broken face, and the face is black and white. And in between that, you see a lot of components. What you see here is it's a gold chain that I have from the early 80s when I was into selling narcotics. And that's the only memory I have from that life that I used to live. So I decided to put it up in a picture because I got tired of having a chain around my neck. If I'm gonna call myself a free man, then I want to be free completely from every chain they bound me to anything. So that's what that chain is there for. Then I got these are all new pieces that I'm working on, and I'll show y'all in a minute. This is
RBG.
Yeah, RBG.
Well, Audrey Hepburn.
All right, you know your people, huh?
Beautiful.
Yes.
Lance Reenstein.
Obviously.
Kobe.
Sophia Loren. So I do a whole bunch of stuff that people don't expect me to do when it comes to art.
Those are really cool.
When I was in prison, it was strictly political art, but now my subjects have changed because I'm home. So I have different subjects now, but I still try to put that political message in there.
Yep.
You have a great painting of Amanda Gorman, who did the
yes.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think it's on the website, deathbyincarcerationpodcast.com. If not, once the show is released, that's all going to be part of all of these little sub episodes or bonus episodes or Patreon episodes where you'll see what Suave has done outside of, because we get it, the whole topic matter is very intricate and
on this wall over here, I got a bunch of art on this wall. This is my art space here.
It's all of Tim, right? Tim and Jen and Kevin. It's all.
Well, I'm doing one of Kevin. I'm doing me and Kevin. We got to do one together, right?
That's
But
right.
you know, art is a tool that saved my life, man. When I was going crazy in prison, when I thought I was losing my mind, art was what saved me. You know, so and it's what has kept me when all these employers in Philadelphia refuse to give me a job because I got a background. Art is what saved me, even through the pandemic. I tell people the pandemic was bad for a lot of people, but it was good for me as an artist because it's the only time that I was selling 8-9 pieces a month throughout the pandemic. So
also,
it became something that I painted 100 essential workers when the pandemic hit in the city of Philadelphia and above, and it kept me afloat. So you know, I owe my survival in the prison system to art and education.
Well, also, Suave, you use it now. You know, when you can't sleep, you're up painting, and then you call me and you come up with new ideas for the show.
Oh yeah. Because that's something that I developed when I was in prison, where I sleep all day and be up all night. The only difference now is that I have a job, so I can't really sleep all day, but I can't sleep at night either. Yeah. So I'm out painting, and you know, now I know that my time and Kevin's time, he got 3 hours on me. So I'm like, you know what? Let me call Kevin. It's still early over there. Might be 1 o'clock in the morning here, but it's early over there.
My favorite, you know, Suave.
That's what I'm thinking. That's when I think the best.
Yeah.
When I'm here painting, and let me call Kevin on this. No, and a lot of it has to do that I really believe in what we're doing. You know, because if I didn't believe in what we was doing, I would have kept moving on. I would have moved on. Like, nah, I'm not interested. I really believe that we need to advocate more to bring more people home, not only in Pennsylvania, but in California. These states that have these crazy draconian laws that's keeping people behind bars for decades and decades. There's no way in the world you should keep somebody in prison for 50, 60 years. You know, and I was in a prison where, unfortunately, we had the oldest juvenile lifer in the United States. And that's hurtful, man, to have people that long in prison and not give them a chance to redemption.
Tiff, Suave did not do art really before he was incarcerated. He learned to, as far as I know from our talking, he learned how to paint and use what materials he had. Not only did he do that, he taught other people. They set up programs that worked with people outside, got scholarships. They did a mural program. Keep in mind that when he went in, and you know, I don't use this term lightly, the Philadelphia public school system deemed him essentially mentally
retarded with an IQ of 56.
Yeah. And so they had written him off. And when we talk about what happens to communities, especially communities of color around education, this is where the problem is that he had been written off, yet he goes to prison, creates a bunch of programs, helps a bunch of other men, gets help from a bunch of other men in there, gets a college degree from Villanova. I don't have a college degree. I dropped out of college. I couldn't do it, you know.
Well, wait a minute, Kevin. I got 2 college degrees, man. Like, don't
loan Kevin one.
Yeah, just give him one, actually.
Yeah. But let me say this, right? Let me say this, that most programs in prison that lifers and long-term prisoners could participate are created by lifers. You have to create, because the system has a system that if you're serving life, you can't really participate in none of their programs. They won't let you. So you're forced to create your own programs. And most of the programs that are created by people incarcerated are the programs that really works. The system program, the one they offer, nobody want to go to them because they're antiquated, right? They want to show you how to make shoes the 1920 ways with a shoe rack and a hammer. Don't nobody make shoes like that no more.
Yeah.
Only way I get my shoes made, by the way.
Well, okay, so good luck.
Yeah.
They prepare you to come home by writing resumes and typewriters that make you look like you in a police station, right? What people don't know is that most people that come home don't know that you just can't walk into a business and drop your resume. Everything is done online. We are prohibited from being on the computer, from owning a phone or anything. And they do it. Some prisons do give you a tablet, which I think is a racket that they're running, right? But it's only for you to buy music. Out here, most music that you go online is free. In prison, you got to pay whatever you get on YouTube for free. In prison, you have to pay $2 per song. So it's like a business. They hustle the poor people. I always said it. How are you going to hustle a homeless person? Most people in prison are homeless. We don't have nothing. We come home with nothing. But yet, if I want to hear a song, I got to pay $2 because if I want to send an email from the prison, I got to pay 25 cents to send an email.
Huh. That's interesting. That's called rehabilitation, and it's interesting that we have the most people in the world incarcerated in this country, and you're telling me that all of them are paying money into a system. It almost sounds like a racket. It almost sounds like some sort of criminal syndicate.
It is a racket. It's the Department of Corruption racket. They run that. They tell you which vendor could come into the prison and sell their products for a cut. They tell you that. They run that. You just can't say, I'm going to put this product in the prison. No, you got to give the prison a cut.
Yeah.
You know, you got people like the Connect Network. They found a niche. Mm-hmm. You know, if anybody know how Connect Network was created, they should look it up. It was created by a former guard. Right? It was created by a former guard and a former guards union. They're controlling half of the jails in the United States now. Phone calls, mail. And most jails now, you cannot write me a handwritten letter. Everything got to go to a system in Florida. They photocopy it and send it to the jail, and the jail give you a copy. So,
you know,
it's insane.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Now, you know, a letter and pictures used to be what kept the family tied together in prison. Now you can't even do that.
Yeah. It's interesting because at the beginning of this, Kevin, you said that you would consider yourself an abolitionist, and I'm sure a lot of people are thinking like abolition. Boy, that doesn't sound like anything that should happen now. That sounds like something that should happen in the 1850s and 60s. Yeah, and now Suave is talking about a system that is incarcerating people of color for the profit of a much larger cross-section of society. It sort of sounds like what happened in the 1850s.
It's a racket. I mean, there is no doubt about it. And so we talk about it all the time because, you know, now they've got video calls that they have to pay for. Like I've got a guy here in San Quentin on death row that calls me. I had to charge up a card on my phone essentially to make my phone a valid number for him to call. I had to put money on it, and I pay by the minute to talk to him. You know, and that's the way it works because the system is not set up to rehabilitate. It's set up to dehumanize and separate people. It's set up to make the world or continue the world in our society in two classes, right? And when you're incarcerated, when you are a person that is in a prison in the United States of America, the goal is to dehumanize and separate you from your family and your community. And so when people like Suave and James and others that are doing art and connecting with their community, there's so much control over that. They basically sort of cheated the system to get the murals out. They sent them out piece by piece, you know, and that's how they had to do it because there's no way they would have allowed that to happen. You know, that's too much of a connection with your home. And it's wild. I mean, we've been doing interviews with people that are still incarcerated right now, and it's mind-blowing.
Put it like this, right? In Pennsylvania, they stopped the media from coming into the prisons.
Yep.
They basically shut that down for years. So our only way of getting the message out was through art.
Yeah.
It was through art. And we did it. We managed to do it. We managed to create a system where we could put whatever political message in our artwork and send it out. You know, and the prison didn't like it, but they also knew that if you fuck with my artwork, I'm gonna sue the shit out of you, right? And you had to pay me a shitload worth of money. So it was just best to say, you know what, you got to send that piece out because you use contraband material to create it.
But what wouldn't be what wouldn't be contraband material?
Well, technically, if you use a request, if you use a piece of paper or any form that has the DOC name, they consider that contraband. If you shit like I did, the prison was going to close, so I chipped the paint from the wall and put it in one of my arts. That's technically contraband. You know, so it's them little tricks that they use to try to confiscate your work, or if your message in the art don't fit well with a certain guard, he goes back and tell the other guards, well, you know, go look at his work. His work is just I seen that happen. I seen it when they confiscated my friend's James, one of his pictures in one of the art shows. You know, I seen it happen. You know, and but then again, it happens in other countries where art becomes the movement of the people.
Well, that's
art in prison is a very, very big movement, you know, because we represent the prisons. So every time we do art, I don't care if you like me personally. I don't care if you ever talk to me. If you could connect with that art, there's a possibility that we could build some type of friendship or some type of understanding between each other in the system.
Look at dictators over the centuries. They always go after artists, right?
Right.
I mean,
you know,
I actually saw this last night. I watched the Frontline documentary that just came out this week on the insurrection, you know, and there was guys wearing Pinochet did nothing wrong t-shirts. Pinochet targeted artists purposely because artists connect with the community in a way that's threatening to people who want ultimate power. And so when you have the opportunity to do art in prison, and it was just said, you basically free your mind. You're no longer a prisoner to the walls or the chains or the gates. Your mind is free, and that's threatening to the system. For sure. Somebody earlier mentioned wanting to help with the live events. You can email us really easily. It's either Suave at deathbyincarcerationpodcast.com or Kevin at deathbyincarcerationpodcast.com. I've put forwarders on so they come to our regular emails now because I know people were having trouble before. But we also will be looking, and not to, again, tip our hand too much, but we'll be looking for people in states other than Pennsylvania and probably Michigan to be on the ground finding stories for us to tell. So Texas is a state with a very long history of some harsh punishment, to say the least.
Louisiana,
Alabama. We may be sounding like we're targeting a certain region of the country, but Arizona and New Mexico as well. Arizona, just the jail system alone in Maricopa County begs to be talked about. And so if you've got leads or stories, or you want to be sort of like a part of our street team, just contact us. We're happy to take the help. Believe me, we both work full time, and we have to do these interviews and our recordings when we have time. We fit them in, obviously, because we have a ton of material already, but we're happy for the help. If you've got a podcast mic and a way to record and you can get somebody on an interview, send it to us. We'll use whatever materials we can, as long as we're sticking to the discussion of mass incarceration.
Right.
And we get sent other stuff too, like we're going to talk about in our upcoming episode next week. We get sent, leads on wrongful conviction cases. We're going to set up a way to give those cases off to people better suited, like Maggie Freeling, the Innocence Project, people that are actually doing those kinds of podcasts and investigations. But there are a few that we will look into for a variety of reasons. So don't hesitate to send them. That doesn't necessarily mean we can do anything with them, but if they're compelling enough, we may take a look at them, especially if they involve a certain ADA an ADA in the Philadelphia area in the 1980s. We will definitely.
And you had mentioned the person who had reached out, who had mentioned helping out with the live events. That was Rebecca Sebastian. She does the great podcast Dialogue.
Oh yes,
also a Crawlspace Media podcast. So she is very easy to get in touch with within the family. And you will be introducing you will be meeting somebody who will help you out with the energy and the passion that Jen and Jason and Tim and myself and Aaron. She is one of the good ones. So yeah,
she just brought us on the show.
Rebecca, yeah. y'all guys need to come on ASAP. We there tomorrow. Just let us know. and I'm serious for the people that's out there, hearing us. Make sure you go on Apple and rate the show. It's very important for us, for y'all to go on Apple and give it that 5-star. I guarantee you this. I guarantee you this with all my art. I guarantee that we will be one of the hottest podcasts in the atmosphere when it comes to legal issues. I don't even call it criminal reform issue because there's no reforming right now, and addressing these issues, because we are bringing the truth and we giving you the voices that people haven't heard for 30, 40 years. We have plans of letting people call from the penitentiaries that haven't spoken to nobody in the world for 30, 40 years, like Willie Johnson and San Quentin.
Yep.
He don't speak to people.
Nope.
So to hear a voice of somebody that's been on death row for 40 years should do something to your psyche. And if it don't, then you're not human.
Yeah.
So go on Apple, listen to the trailer, follow us, support it, share the show. However you think you can share it, share it. This episode, I'm telling you, this episode next week is going to be so explosive that I want all of y'all out there to make it go viral. Make it go viral.
Yep. And
we're talking about
the explosive. The follow-up episodes that we're going to do investigating this case are going to be even more explosive.
I mean, we're talking about saving 2 gentlemen from dying
in prison,
death row, which is death by incarceration. And you could be part of that historic moment. I won't give you the episode, so I won't spoil it. But y'all need to hear it. I'm telling you, when we make the announcement, it's out. Y'all need to jump on it.
Absolutely. Yes, it's a great episode, and it's coming out soon. Check it out. Death by Incarceration is the podcast. We've got Suave and Kevin McCracken. These are 2 great guys doing a great new show with an important message. Make sure you subscribe. It is this first episode is coming soon, within the next month or so.
Not to be confused with episode 1. It's sort of a bonus episode, is to get you primed, and it's to really, I want to emphasize the common thread and the theme through the whole thing is that what appears to be hopeless is not hopeless. Look at the people like Suave who come out of this and they say, again, you've become a creative force, a dangerous force for the people who don't want you to be that. And that is the most effective and productive thing that someone can be historically. Like, if you look at historic figures that have changed the course of events in society, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but they always disrupt. They're always creative. They always find a way to speak their mind. And the platform you have is this podcast. We're incredibly proud to have both of you on it. And I just hope that everybody...
Let me say this before you go, right? I could only do what I do is because people like you, people like Tim, people like Kevin believe in what I'm doing and willing to give me that platform, and so I want to share this credit with my team. This is a team effort. And from day one, the team been incredible. at Crawlspace. Jim, I don't know what to do with her. I probably couldn't even plug this computer in because I don't know too much about technology. But we came up here, plugged it in. You know, it's a team effort. It's really a team effort. And our success belongs to the team. There's no I in team. You know, and we playing ball. We playing to keep. You know, what a lot of people don't understand, when you have a solid team, you can't be stopped. You can't be stopped. We are a championship team at Crawlspace, especially Death by Incarceration. So I want everybody to understand that Death by Incarceration is not just a podcast. We created a movement where we intend to bring change to a lot of issues. You know, you might see me one day giving out food. Another day, you might just see me shaking hands and giving out T-shirts by our great sponsors, Bella Canvas. So, you know, it's stuff like that that you don't expect a podcast to do that we are going to do. You know, so I just want everybody to understand that we are only able, people like me are able to use this platform is because people like Kevin, people like Lance, people like Tim, people like Jim has laid the foundation for us to come through and say, you know what, we believe in you. Go along. What you want to do, and let's do it. Yeah. You know, so thank you, Crawlspace. Thank you, Kevin. I already told you, you like a brother from another mother. We just got to go to San Francisco and meet, you know, make sure we have a lot in common. And to Crawlspace for being courageous enough to say, you know what, you could come on our space and do Death by Incarceration.
Yeah.
And June 1st, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, we haven't even said that.
Okay. My bad. June 1st, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all about to hear a different type of podcast that would leave you breathless. I guarantee you, our first episode, not the bonus episode, will leave you breathless. And you will wonder how them two guys managed to get a list of people to talk to us. You know why? Because people want to address these issues. And we are saying what they can't really say because they political position. And I leave it at that.
Love it. Love it. June 1st is the premiere of the first episode. Again, couldn't have done it without Jen, Jason, Suave, Kevin, Tim. I mean, really, it's been a really great experience and a really important experience. And I cannot wait. I can't wait to see the reaction. And guys, it's 10:43. We've gone 43 minutes past. This is a record for us, so we probably should sign off.
Yeah. I want
It's been great.
I do want to toss in I want to toss my hat in the Jen fan club ring, because she went over and got Suave all hooked up so we could record our first episodes. And you know, I know him and I we're so excited all the time. It's a lot of energy coming at anyone. And so one last Jen comment is she's also toned down the orange Jen. She keeps our color palette in check as well as everything else. So thank you.
It was a little hot. It was a little hot.
I thought it was dope. I thought that was my favorite color. I thought it was dope. I also want to say that for the people behind the scene that has been contacting me, and yo, we're about to do this. And to my friend that has encouraged me from day one, I just want to say thank you, Maggie Ferlin and Julieta Martinelli, for planting that seed that, man, you might as well go and do your own, right? And for introducing me to Kev and Crawlspace. You know, I think Maggie was like, she's a dope reporter. And she motivated me to do this. You know, like, man, go ahead and do your own. You don't need nobody to do a podcast, and you do your own. And this is the result when you have people that believe in you, pushing you and saying, take the shine, go ahead, go, do your thing. This is what happens. Death by Incarceration, June 1st.
Great. Thank you
20%
so much.
off any purchase, your first purchase at bellacanvas.com with promo code DBI 2021.
Nice.
Our wonderful sponsors.
All right, and yes, definitely want to give a shout out to the other podcast, your other podcast, Suave, with Maggie Freeling, obviously, and Maria and Julieta from PRX and Futuro. So big fans of that show as well. Thank you, Suave and Kevin, for hanging out with us tonight. This is a record, as Lance mentioned. We really appreciate it.
Let's do this every week till we drop our season. And anybody interested in buying some of my art, you want to see some more art, go to Morton Contemporary webpage, and you will see all my artwork there. And I want to teach an art class live on Crawlspace.
That
if there's some interest out there, y'all tell me the subject that y'all want to paint, and I guarantee y'all to have y'all paint it.
You know, we've been thinking of
Portraits of Jenna Mel.
Portraits of Jenna Mel.
Well, listen, let's do it. Let's do it. And the winner will be judged by the people that's watching. And if you win, I will do a portrait of yourself.
Yep.
Ooh.
The winner will get a portrait done by me.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's a challenge for Crawlspace and for True Crime Mystery.
Shout out to Rebecca there that just pulled that Morton Contemporary Gallery.com link.
Yeah.
That's in the messages right there. Lots going on. A lot of positive, great stuff. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Peace.
Go on. All right. Stopping the broadcast here. Wow.